This weekend post, unscripted, uncut, it's a live edit. Hey everybody, I'm Scott Davenport, welcome to In Post. So today is a live edit. If you've not seen one of these before, live, kind of in air quotes here. I'm taking a photo I've never worked on before at my library, and we just press the record button and we start processing, and I'll describe what I'm thinking as I go along and do things. So there may be some mistakes, there may be some switchbacks and turnabouts, but that's kind of how processing goes. And before I start the whole session here, I want to get your photo questions. Reach out to me, comments in the video below, or you can contact me through my website. Love getting your questions, hear what's on your mind photographically, and hopefully I can help you out with an answer. So let's start. I've got this photo here of the San Diego skyline, and I took this one shortly after, like 15 minutes after the session I showed in the field earlier this week. Incidentally, if you want to see the processing of that sunset photo, I've got that over on my On One Learning Center. It should be up by now, so you can go check it out there. So quick image assessment, looking at this. So there's a couple of things here. I'm going to see like a little, it might be a star. It could, probably not a star given the light pollution there. A little plane or something like that. Clean that up. There's probably a couple other dust spots up there. I can see another couple here. I really want to amplify the colors that are in the reflections. This is what really drew me to the photo, all this stuff right down here on the bottom. I want to make the sky bluer and of course make this skyline jump out a little more, get that crisper. So let's just begin with the basics here. I'm going to hit the Q key, A for the spots. Oh yeah, there's a bunch of them up here. I won't bore you all with getting all of these. This is probably a plane dragging over a long exposure. But we'll get the main ones out of the way here. One more. All right, that one there. We'll call that good enough for now. Q key done with that. And let's get into our basics. So this is a very dark photo, much, the mid-tones and low mid-tones. Very little in terms of the highlights. Now we have a good exposure. The skyline and the lights out there, that's going to be our brightest brights. So I'm not really going to play with the exposure slider. I am going to look at the temperature slider here. The yellowish cast that's on the, well, that was a weird artifact. I don't know what that was. The yellowish cast that's on the skyline is a little annoying. So maybe we'll cool this down just a little bit. And let me play with tint. Tint's helping a lot. There we go. Shoving that a little away from the greens, the yellowish greens. That was much better. Oh, check that out. Let's just do a before and after on that. As shot. And then custom. That's nicer. That's cleaned up the skyline nicely. Let's see. I'm going to check the black point. White point I know we've got. I can tell already. Black point, let's nudge that down a little bit. I'm holding the Option or Alt key. And I can see right in the center, I'm going to push it really far. See all that yellowish clipping that happens first? Right in the center, that's just starting to disappear. So tiny nudge down on the blacks. That must have been like this dark tree-ish area there. Let's add a little contrast. That's going to punch things up a little bit. Cool. Let me see about the shadows. I'm not so sure on that for the photo as a whole. I think I'm going to leave that alone and maybe target something to just the reflections in the harbor. A little bit of clarity, not too much. I think I'll do things more localized. A little vibrance, saturation, not much. I sort of want to get more blues up top, or maybe not. I want to open up the foreground some for sure, and if I can either darken the sky, make that retreat, or I can open up the foreground. I'm going to start with trying the foreground. So let me jump over to a gradient. Drag one of those up on here. Let's see, let's get a good rotation point right there at the, well, not the horizon line, but you know what I mean, the line of the harbor. Clarity is not what I wanted though. I'm going to open up shadows here. Let's open up that foreground. Let's also boost up a bit on the colors. And I'm really kind of watching that, those rainbow stripes that are coming down right here. Those are cool. I want to make sure those get a healthy amount of attention there. Maybe a little bit of contrast. Nah, it's darkening it too much for my tastes. Oh, maybe a tiny bit. A little bit. Let's see a before and after on that. Before and after. That's good. I like that. I still think I want to darken the blues up top here. So this might be a good spot for the range masks in Lightroom. I can paint through this pretty easily. This building will be the challenge one because that's got blue tones that are similar to the sky. And I've been meaning to do another video on the range mask, but let's go ahead and get some of that going on here. So we got a new gradient. I'm going to drag it down to here and just leave it there for a moment. And so we can see what's going on. I'm just going to darken, or is that darken? I'm going to cool down the temperature. So that's adding coolness into the sky. We can see that. Just watch the sky for a second, before and after. I know we're changing the harbor as well, but that's adding richness in those blues there. What it's also doing, though, if I hover over this, it's also adding some blues into the skyline. We don't want that. So I'm going to try to do this with the color range mask. And I want to just get these colors. So I'm going to hit these guys here. A few more colors like that. And now let's show the overlay. That did a better job. It's still not perfect. This is what's happening. You get blue sky, you get blue water. There's a lot of blue thrown around in this scene. So we'll start next by kind of working the range and watch the building. I'm going to push it all the way. We're going to see too much of the sky go. But we can start to fine tune that. And it looks like the real challenge points are this building here and this building here. So we'll clean that up with a brush. Brush, we'll auto mask, we'll add it in. Or actually, I don't want to add it in, I want to erase it. Auto mask. Let's try to see how well. Yeah, even the edge detection is having problems with the such closeness in tone. So we'll just be careful about where we brush there. And the same thing for this one. We'll be careful where we brush. And it's okay if it's not perfect, because we're really just adding a slight bit of coolness with this gradient. And if we add a little bit of coolness to the tops of the buildings, when I turn this off, we're not really going to notice that much of a difference. Let's switch over to A here and kind of just paint over that building there. I know there was a little bit of gap in our mask in those couple of areas there. All right, that looks good. Let's see a before and after on just the gradient work. Before and after. Cool, so we've gotten some nicer, richer tones in the blues. This has opened up a little bit. I'm going to add one more gradient, and this one will be a slight decrease in exposure. And this is just to kind of draw the eye down. As opposed to doing a vignette, I'm going to just draw the eye downward by darkening this top by a little and pulling us to the skyline. So the last thing I think I want for this photo, let's do done there. Let's check a couple of things. I want a little more punch in the skyline itself, and potentially toning down those yellows. Let's go into HSL and saturation. Let's just start hovering over things. We got oranges. And what I'm doing is, as I hover over spots, I'm watching to see what gets highlighted over here in the saturation side. So if I go up in the sky, we expect blue. If I get into the buildings, I'm expecting orange or yellow. I'm just kind of fading around or floating around through here. And we get, it's exactly what we got, oranges and yellows. So if I take orange and desaturate it, I'll push it all the way, we'll see the sky get, very murky. So we can tone down the heat of that orange, maybe even the yellow a little bit. Luminance wise, I wonder what that'll do. I don't think I want to change luminance, and I certainly don't want to change, well, hue. If I shift orange a little bit toward red, if I push it really far, that looks terrible, but we get a little more of a twilight feel. I'm not really sold on that maneuver. Maybe a tiny bit. All right, but what really needs to happen is I need to get some crispness in there. So I'm going to go to a brush and just paint through this with a little contrast, clarity, and let's go ahead and add sharpness for good measure. I'm going to start with auto mask turned off, and I'm going to be a little sloppy in the brushing And then I'll use the erase with the mask turned on to kind of clean things up. So let's make our brush reasonably large and just start to paint through the areas of the skyline here. And as you can tell, I'm just being very cavalier in how I'm brushing through here. And we'll clean things up in a bit. This, again, this blue, the buildings that have the similar blue tones, that's where the edge detection will have its biggest challenges. Let's turn on our overlay, see how I did with that. Okay, I've covered all the buildings, and as expected, I bled into the harbor. That's all right. Erase with auto mask turned on, and now I can sweep through underneath, take care of things close right to that edge of the land, like that. Then I'll turn off the auto mask and kind of clean up the areas of the water. And this is where it gets a little challenging because some of these streaks in the water are red and the mask overlay is red. It would be nice if Lightroom had a another color we could put in there, but we don't have that. Now we'll take care of some of these areas up in the sky where I added crispness to the sky that I don't want. And for a social media share, it probably wouldn't really matter. But for if I were to end up making this as to a larger output or a print or something, adding in detail to kind of a uniform color can sometimes create, artifacts. I mean, the digital tool is trying to find differences to exaggerate, and so it can end up looking like noise, and we certainly don't want that. So I'll err on the side of caution and just get rid of this stuff that's up in the sky here. One more set of buildings. Oh, this one I need to be a little more careful on. I kind of got lucky with that brush stroke. This is the one where we've got a much bluer building. All right, one more time over there. Now I'll just do kind of a couple of single clicks in areas that are needing a little bit of cleanup. Again, I'm not worried about being absolutely perfect. Just, sufficient enough that I don't introduce some terrible amount of noise. And let's see, that looks all done. Let's turn that off. Now let's see before and after on this brushing to add in details. Before. Come on, Lightroom, catch up. After. Okay, it got a little brighter, which is interesting. I guess that's part of the contrast. It's really, it's amplifying the differences between brights and darks. I'm going to try toning down those highlights just a little bit so that we don't have it overpowering. Oh, and Lightroom, boy, you are sluggish. I'm not pushing you that hard. All right. What about a nudge on exposure? And that's just to really kind of drive home that this skyline is where we want to be looking. Yeah, I think I'm going to be good with that. That's going to be okay. Last thing I'm thinking about is perhaps a tiny nudge to the tone curve to try and do some very, very subtle global contrast. And since most of the tones are in this low area, what did that do for me? Let's see, before that tone adjustment and after. Not noticing much of a difference, so I'm going to forget about that. Just make it linear again, basically zeroing it back out. I think we'll call that one done. So let's take a final look here. Before and after. So added a bit of color, made sure to open up that foreground to get those like rainbow stripes that was initially what attracted my eye. And darkened the sky, really cooled it down to give the illusion that we're darkening it, getting a richer blue. And added that one gradient on the top to kind of just draw the eye down and inward. So tip of the week, I think, would be knowing your masking tools. And what I mean by that is, in one of the examples, I used that color range mask. In a second example, I was being cavalier with my brush strokes all the way through the skyline there, because I knew that I could more easily remove pieces from the uniform areas, the blue areas of the sky. and that let me get my masking job done a little bit faster. So you don't always have to be painstaking for your initial mask application if you know that it's easier to remove pieces after your initial coverage. That does it for this week's In Post. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you did, please let me know somehow. Comments on the video are always appreciated, as are social shares. If you got questions, please ask. Hit me up with the comments or contact me with the email right through my website. And until next time, my name is Scott Davenport, and happy shooting.